Anyways, today we're going to talk about blackberry variety options, and going to give, first of all, a little plug for something that I'm developing, another project I have. So everything's going to ebooks. Everybody have an iPad out there? Yeah. So ebooks are a little popular, and iPads. You can imagine that growers in the future will have little iPad type things in their trucks going around the field and needing to look up something. So we wanted to have something that you can have instead of having the big production guide, have all that information you need on an ebook. So we're developing that, or in the process of developing that. I got a rough draft of the text back to me yesterday, but for an ebook, you want to have it real user-friendly and lots of different things, interactions going on. So I want to ask you guys, if you have anything in particular, if you've done the ebooks, is there things that you like about ebooks, is that you don't like about ebooks? I picked up, I was at a meeting the other day, and they said, make sure you have a table of contents and an index, so you can immediately go to, if you want to just see the section on pruning, tap on that and move yourself all the way to the pruning section in that ebook. I thought about pruning videos. We're going to have lots of videos on pruning, and maybe we'll do this flower to fruit, monitoring, things like that. So if you think of anything, it's like, I really wish I had a better instruction on that or more information on that, let me know, and we'll try to incorporate that into the ebook. And the ebook is a nice thing too, because we can change it on a yearly basis, or wherever we feel like we need to add something, we can easily add something. So that's a plug for a project that I have going on. And I also want to thank John Clark. John, I called him the other day and said, John, I need some slides about what's going on with blackberries. They wanted to talk about them in the blackberry growers meeting in North Carolina. So he sent me a slide talk. So his slides are intermixed with some of my slides. So I'm sorry that I'm not John Clark. I don't have the entertainment value of John Clark and his jokes and whatever else that he would bring to you, but I do have some of my thoughts in addition to what he has as well. Because he's not here and I am. So, thinking about replanting, everybody here has blackberries in the field for 5 years or more? There's quite a few people. Anybody thinking about replanting? Seriously? Yeah, okay, so now's the time to start planning for that. So what do you need to think about? You need to think about, first of all, what's your market? I spoke this morning up in Lenore, and where they're having the Blackberry Festival, and they're mostly small growers' backyard and small acreage, and they're thinking a whole different scale of things. So what is your market? What type of variety is going to dictate what type of variety they're going to plant? Time of harvest too. Do you want the early season or do you want the late season? I think most of the commercial growers here want something a little bit later. And then we're going to discuss all those other traits like yield and shape and flavor and size and all that stuff that we'll discuss. But those are some of the things that you're going to be thinking about, and also age of planting as well, I guess. So how do you decide what you're going to plant? Sort of the order of ripening. You need to think about it first. Nachas. According to this is all John, if he has this down here, this is his words. Sometimes I'll let you know if I interject some of my stuff. Nachos is one of the earliest ones. It's very large, very popular, sometimes tart. Not always large and impressive, not as erect. It has a little bit of a trailing habit, and it tends to overproduce. So that's why sometimes it's tart, because it just has too much fruit on it, so it can't get them all right. Osage is another new one, worth trying. It's the same season as Ouachita. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Ouachita is the top Arkansas variety. How many people grow Ouachita? Yeah, so that one by I can show fans, I can tell that that's the number one. When that came on the radar a few years ago, I really was impressed with that too, because it's a really nice blackberry. Navajo, it's the first one that was ever thornless that was released from that program. It's the latest one. He's not as keen on it anymore. It's very old. It's off patent as well, so he's not as keen on it because of that reason, and people understand that, why that's so. But it is still very reliable. It does have a double blossom problem. It's a little bit smaller than some people like, but it is very good blackberry still. And then Apache, it's early. Some people like it, especially in the deep south, but it has that white driplet problem. That shift trellis made. There's people in the Midwest that have had good luck with that, with the shift trellis, and that one. And then he doesn't have, and then some of the other varieties here. Kiowa is still on the radar there. It's most popular thorny type, but it is got those thorns and nice large berries. Arapaho is a very early variety. It's been replaced by Nachas for the most part. It's good for the deep south because it has a lower chilling requirement. There are some hardiness and yield concerns about that. If you plant Arapaho, you need to plant it at 2-foot spacing versus the 3 or 4 foot spacing that you would plant a lot of the other varieties. Chickasaw is an older variety, thorny. very long berries, so almost like nachos, very long. Less popular than Kiowa of the 40 ones, but still out there. Shawnee, Chocolate, Cherokee, Cheyenne, Comanche, still out there. I think there's still a planting of Shawnee not too far from here that's some 20 plus years old. Is that right? So it's some of those things just hang in there. Okay, so there's a couple other varieties. One you have heard about. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Released from my program, Jim Valentin and I released it a few years ago. And then Sweetie Pie, something from the USDA in Poplarville, Mississippi. Doesn't get a whole lot of mention. It's mostly a homeowner backyard and very sweet blackberry variety. So just wanted to make sure that you had those mentioned as well. So if you're planting an acre, John Clark recommends 1/2 of it be Ouachita because it's just so reliable. Unless you know of a problem in your field with that variety. The other half you can consider nachos or sage, depending on the season. Me, I think if you're going to plant Ouachita and Osage, that would be overlapping a little bit. So I'm not sure why you would want to do that, unless you just wanted that short season at the same time. Nachos would bring you a little bit earlier. My comments are Navajo or Vaughn would extend your season a little bit later, so that would extend your season. There's others you can pick and choose based on location. Is your location good for primocane fruiters? In general, we're not real good for primocane fruiters here yet.
Dr. Fernandez.
Yes.
We did have one year where we lost most of our production on the Ouachita to freeze, but yet our Navajo is still.
So it could be a secondary buds too, so we'll maybe learn a little bit.
So had some yield on it, but nothing like we did on Navajo.
So we're working on it. Kathy Demchek, I have some data about that too, the secondary buds. So not every variety has the same potential to produce fruit on that secondary crop, and there's a lot of more questions about that than answers about. Is that maybe a comment?
I just didn't know if that was a single occurrence for us.
No, I think it's something to do with genetics in the previous year, what the season was like, and whether or not you had secondary buds being able to be formed. Because some weather in some climates is better than others for that. So it's a PhD project out there waiting to happen. So here's Osage, the newest variety, thornless variety Florida variety from the University of Arkansas system. It ripens between Natchez and Ouachita. The average date in Arkansas is June 10th. Yields have been consistent, comparable to Ouachita. Berry size is medium, slightly smaller than Ouachita, nice and brown, similar size shape to Ouachita. Flavor is a key attribute. It's lower acid with notable flavor components coupled with high soluble solids. He's getting like he sounded like a wine connoisseur here. But they are really looking at flavors a lot more in this program. It's starting to come out. There's even textures they're looking at more than just a plain old standard blackberry. Good flavor even on bad days, as noted by John Clark, and has great post-harvest tannin potential. So I had it once, this year we planted it and we had a fairly large number of it, and I agree, it's a very nice berry. Why would you want to consider it? If you want a complement to Ouachita already, it's about the same season as I said before in size, consistently uniform druplet fill, where Ouachita can have somewhat of an uneven fill if that's a concern to you. It's hoped to explain our flavor components and enjoyment by blackberry consumers. So he's working with people who look at those things a little bit more closely now at the university. So we hope to see more of these types of things where we're really concentrating on flavor.
Gina?
Yeah.
Does the Osage ripen over, the harvest period, is it like Ouachita, like 4 weeks, is it a little longer?
I don't know. I think I have that data, Wayne. I can show you that. It's right on my computer. I knew somebody would ask me that. I have just 1 year's of data for us here, and I don't know if it's in this slide. I don't know. We'll look here. I think there might be something about that. I think it starts a little bit later, but I'm not sure. There's one of them starts a little bit later. Ouachita is thornless, erect. You know all about Ouachita already. It ripens between Natchez and Arapahoe. Yields about the highest in Arkansas thornless varieties. Flavor near Navajo, pretty sweet berry, 10% soluble solids, which is something we would want. It has good post-harvest potential. I'm sure everybody out here is pretty happy with it. Largest selling Arkansas variety in terms of volumes of plants being sold. Most performance, as far as performance in different locations, it's done really well. So it is really a nice, reliable blackberry. Nachas, one of the newer ones on the block, is thornless. Erect is semi-erect. It came out, when did it came out? Not too long ago, and it was a different kind of beast. And I think a lot of people were frustrated with it at first because we didn't know how to prune it. I think we have a better handle on that, how to minimize the amount of yield, because it will out-yield anything, or try to produce a lot more fruit than anything else that was released from that program. But now that we have a handle on how to manage it, it's a little bit better. It's early, records early with the Arapaho, usually highest yields of the thornless Arkansas types. Almost never see white drupelets. Has anybody growing this and seen any white drupelets on that one? I have not either. Flavor good, a little bit slower in soluble solids. Post-harvest potential good, but not as good as Ouachita, at least consistently. And some variation in commercial success due to heavy crop loads. That's what we have seen. People overcropping it and it just not getting ripe, and not having enough leaf area to develop all those fruits. Pictures of nachas, really nice elongated berry. You have to be a master of putting together puzzles sometimes to put them into the clamshells because they are so long. Apache still around. It's got these white druplet problems. They've had success with this variety because it's a really nice flavored variety. In southern Illinois, I was at the NAGA meetings last week, and Debbie was there. I don't know if anybody else was here. After its farm, Debbie, how many acres do they have of blackberries?
4 or 5.
Yes. And they have most of them on the shift trellis, that rotating arm trellis, and they're in southern Illinois, which is an area that traditionally don't recommend for growing blackberries. They're having great luck with it there. And then seeing less of this white druplet problem with that as well. Navajo, no, that one is a very reliable late season, medium to high yield, double blossom resistant because it's that thornless type. Post-harvest traits are great about it. It does have that orange rust problem, and is good for both local and commercial. And this one, if you want only one variety for a home garden, I think this is really the one to plant because it's reliable, it's thornless, not a huge plant, and it's available in your box stores, so you can find it at Lowe's and Home Depot and places like that. So I'll tell homeowners and backyard growers, if you want to spend $15 on a blackberry plant, you can get them there. It seems like highway robbery to me. I mean, here we pay $15 for a blackberry plant. So I'm going to go into commercial nursery production here, so I think after this. Vaughn is the variety that we released a couple years ago. Similar season to Navajo, medium size, about the same size as Navajo. Smaller druplet, some smaller seeds than Navajo we found. Post-harvest trials, that's pretty good. There have been some concerns about the yield with Vaughn, and just wanted to show this with you. People were concerned that the yield was not as great as other varieties, and we did a 3-year trial with all these different varieties. This is pounds per plant. 2008, the first year the plants were in the ground, Vaughn had about 11 pounds per plant versus Navajo. Yes, I would be discouraged there as well. Arapaho nachos were kind of low there too. As you go into the second and the third year, Vaughn's yields increase quite significantly, and kind of the average of the time it is as good or better than some of the other varieties there as well. Nachos was really low here because we overcropped it early on and never really caught up because it was just when it was sort of new and we didn't treat it the way we should know how to treat it now. Sweetie Pie is a new variety from USDA in Cochran, South Horticulture Laboratory in Poplarville, Mississippi. USDA folks down there. Vigorous, semi-erect. It has Navajo in its background, so it would be similar looking to that. Moderate yields, mid to late season of ripening. Very high fruit quality, having excellent flavor. They keep on saying how sweet it is. Probably low chilling because of where it's been selected. Resistant to double blossom. This down there, they have double blossom very substantial infestations of it, so that's good to see that that's there as well. And so they recommend it only for homeowners and small-scale operations. So just wanted to put that out there because somebody would inevitably ask me, what about that one? So I just want to let you know. These are some pictures of the varieties. We have this new trial put in at one of the research stations that we work at in Salisbury. So here's Osage, Ouachita. The lights, I guess you can't see the difference real well there, though they look real similar. notches, a lot more elongated berries. We put in 2 from the Pacific Northwest because I often get questions about how they will do it. We're also having an international conference, so we want to show how much better varieties developed in the South, grow in the South to these other varieties right here. So Marionberry is a variety that dominates the Pacific Northwest, is what they make all the Marionberry jams and jellies and syrups with. I think something like 80,000 acres in Oregon and Washington. So it's it's a big berry out there. Black Diamond is its replacement, but when you plant it in the Southeast, they just are not too happy. Very small yields and very poor plant vigor. So here are some dates of order of ripening in Clarksville, Arkansas, and these are pretty much the same as we would see here in North Carolina, Natchez being the earliest, Osage, Ouachita, Navajo, and Apache. This, if you do your flagging of your fruit, you'll be able to get ideas of this as well. This is the harvest season in a study that we did in 2008 through 10, looking at 2 different locations in Oxford, which is north of Raleigh, and then Salisbury, so we just want to look at the Salisbury one. We had blackberries and tunnels. So look at the middle bar. This would be Salisbury outside the tunnels, which is comparable to what you guys do here. So we started harvesting on this date, which would be June 11th. That would be Arapahoe. Ended around 11th of July. So that was Arapahoe's first. Natchez there's a little bit earlier. Somebody was asking me about that. Then Arapahoe ended a little bit earlier too, but I think that's because we overcropped it that first year, or those 3 years. Ouachita right here, the purple, and look at the center one there. It started ripening around June 21st, ended around August 4th. Apache right here, this green bar right here, starts July 3rd, ended around 6th of August. This is Vaughn right here, NC 430, started around June 27th and ended August 10th or 8th or 10th. Almost the same season, you can see overlaps with Navajo, so it's a little bit earlier than Navajo, ends about the same time as Navajo in July and early August. And then if we put Navajo in a tunnel, we saw it go on a little bit more, and those were those basal buds that we saw kind of coming out there a lot on that one. Triple Crown and Chester, they can be quite late, but they really don't have the post-harvest traits that we like to see, so I don't recommend those, especially for commercial operations. So, primocane fruiting, everybody here, I think we don't have to explain what it's all about. The fruit is produced on the first year canes, usually vegetative only, but they do have fruit. That's genetics that we have discovered. Floricanes usually just produce food. Floricanes fruit on the second year cane, but now we have primocane fruiting type of blackberries. So that's the fruit is born on those first year canes at the end of the season once they get to a certain height. And then once they produce fruit on those tips of the canes, the remainder of that canopy will produce fruit in the second year, so it has the potential to produce fruit the following year on both so it'd be like an everbearing type of blackberry, like they call the raspberries, everbearing, because we have the fruiting on the top and then the mid part of the cane. So this is what primocane fruiting looks like at the tips of the canes. Then later on, the fruit will develop on the lower part of the cane in the following year if you want to produce them that way, and that's how they do it in California with both raspberries, and these types of blackberries. They really take advantage of that fruit development. Primark 45 is the first variety to try commercially, and I think a lot of people here are trying it. They usually grow it, we usually grow it here, not for that primocane fruiting crop, but for the floricane fruiting crop. In 2011 and 12, they were very terrible hot years for primocane fruiting crops, and so we didn't get a whole lot of fruit from them here or there or here. A little bit better in 2013 and 14, where we had some primocane fruit develop. We had studies up in the mountains where we did have a good luck with primocane fruit develop, but we had cold damage to that fruit. And I think I've showed pictures of that before too, where it's too cold up there. So there's a narrow range that we need to kind of get for this to be successful for us primocane fruiting in our climate. And I think just a matter of time before that will happen with the breeding program there. So it's been used for cane crop, mostly by growers in this part of the country. The yields can be quite substantial, and then if you don't have the primary cane fruiting crop the year before, it's even greater because that would take away from the potential of the next year. Here's a picture of John with that crop, and you can see, wouldn't this be nice to have this here in the fall? I don't think we're ever going to see this. This is in central California in October. You can see that those fruit are coming off there October 9th, and there's a lot more fruit still coming on, some even green ones there too, so they can go quite later into the fall with those mild climates hitting California. All right, so this is John, and I wish I could say it like he would say, but this is the almost absolute newest thing from their breeding program. So it's not the newest thing, it's the almost newest thing. This is the first primary fruiting thornless blackberry ever. So Primark Freedom is the name of the variety. It is produces fruit, nice fruit. It is large. It has good soluble solids. It doesn't have the shipping potential of some of the other ones that we're used to that has been released from the program. So the target use was local markets and home gardens. So that was released, I think, 2 years ago, maybe. It ripens about 7 to 10 days before notches, so it's very early. That's on the primary cane crop, so this could be something if you wanted something early. On the flora cane crop, you could flora cane crop this and have something really early. It's a huge crop in California on the primary canes, especially in the cooler regions. Berries can be quite big, 18 grams. That's pretty huge there. As you can see that. That's probably his hand, and that's almost the size of an apricot or something. Okay, so here's the newest thing that he just released. It's called Primark Traveler. It's the first primary cane fruiting thornless shipping quality blackberry ever. So this is the one to really keep an eye on. It's medium sized, good soluble solids with reduced acidity, so that kind of tastes better to most people. Shipping potential for distant markets, and this is something that's really quite exciting that you can actually ship it. Both for long distance and then also good for local markets and home gardens as well. So this is something to keep an eye on. And if you can get any plants, Andy was probably one of the few people in the region that got those plants. So ask Andy next year. Sorry. I think next year they'll be available more widely. Meanwhile, go down and visit the research station there at Clemson and see what they look like. I don't even have them, so I don't know what they look like. So that's the thing from John's program. So here's some of the yield data for these guys. I think they do flora cane harvest of these different varieties because they want to compare them to their flora cane fruiters. Also see what the potential is if they grow as flora canes or as primary cane crops, what the potential is there. So Primark Traveler on the flora cane, the harvest is around 13,000 kilograms per hectare. Not bad at all, but compared to Nachos, not even close, right? So we've still got a ways to go there. The thing to look at here is the, well, I guess it can be compared to Primark 45, so some people might be familiar with that on the flora cane crop. So that's not even, well, 3/4 of that or so. Compared to primary cane harvest of Primark 45 and Traveler, about half that of Primark 45. So without the thorns, you get about half the yield or so. So it's still something to work on. But you know how quickly he's releasing these things. I would imagine just a matter of time before those yields come up as well with thornless primary cane fruiting blackberries. Okay, so lots of other things coming out of that program. Very nice early stuff showing promise, firmness. They like to look at that. And the crisp texture. I was actually talking to one of his graduate students, and they were looking at, she was showing me some of the cell structure of these crisp berries, and it has a different looking cell structure underneath the microscope. So they're really different. I don't know what a crisp blackberry would taste like, but it would be interesting to see. Later season flora cane fruiting varieties in place, but not as sweet as desired, but that's something that we would be interested here, I think. We can deal with the sweet spot as Drosophila. And then all other shipping quality primary cane fruiting thornless stuff coming along. So I imagine coming in 2 years, there'll be something else coming out of that program as well. So here's that trellis that I was talking about in the Midwest that the grower has acreage of. They have it really close to their farm stand. People drive by, they can see all those. So this is in the first year of establishment, so this doesn't show the fruit. But when the public drives by, they're just awed by that fruit, just standing, it's all on one side of the canopy hanging there. They draw the crowds to their farm stand, and they have a pretty large farm stand and lots of peaches and lots of other stuff, but it fit into a nice little niche where they didn't have a lot of produce available, so that's why they're doing it. And they lay the canopy down in the wintertime and put row covers on it, just like the old strawberry stuff that we used to do, and what we still do. And we're able to save the canes that were underneath that row cover, so that's quite expensive. They saved that fruit. If they didn't have the row cover on over that trellis, they lost the fruit, so it was worth it to them. Okay, just want to put in a plug for the raspberry breeding program right here. We have lots of interesting stuff coming along, some really nice. I think Andy, you got maybe 712 and 699. Yeah. So.
I used to have Angela too.
Yeah, and Angela as well. So this is the first variety. We've got other stuff coming along, different shapes and sizes, and nice quality coming out as well too. So it took a while to get that. We've got some heat tolerance as well, so we're making progress there. So we talked about on-farm travel with Daniel. That's when we already kind of went through with that. We'll see that at Wayne's farm. We put that in. And this is winter injury in Pennsylvania. We just want to talk about that a little bit. I don't know if it's this or that, but. Is it here? Okay. So. I talked to Kathy Demchak yesterday, and Fumi Takeda told me about, one other thing about Fumi, and I forgot to put this in here. He did some studies on blackberry bud damage, and when those blackberries are popcorn stage, we didn't know this for sure until he did his study. When they're popcorn stage, if you're familiar with the strawberry popcorn stage, where you can see a little bit of those white petals on the strawberry, the temperature that they will be damaged at is 27.5 degrees, okay? So I would say 28 degrees would be a good, thing to remember, but he says it's actually 27.5. I'll work with 28. And then he was also mentioning that Kathy Demchak up in Pennsylvania, they've tried to struggle to grow blackberries, and they're looking at secondary bud develop in when they have that damage. And they looked at a bunch of different varieties in 2 years, and they looked where the primary buds were damaged, what happened to the secondary buds, and what I see here is a whole lot of confusion. There are some things that seem to have more potential to produce secondary buds than others, but I think it has something to do with the genetics of the variety. So look right here. So this is percent of flower or primary flower buds producing a flower cluster in 2008 and 2009. So this is just that primary bud, how much of those buds, of 100% produced a flower cluster, so 55% in 2008, 2009, about the same. Only where there's only primary were dead, you had damage 4.5 to 15.2%, so it's kind of varied there. Some things that were really stood out right here were I have to look at this down here right now, but what it seemed to me is that some varieties were consistently, when they had primary bud damage, the secondaries were able to produce a crop, and other times they were not able to produce a crop. I'll put this up on my blog and explain it a little bit better. And then from year to year, we don't see real good consistency sometimes. That was the other point. So here we have primary bud kill in 2008 on Doyle's thornless. We had 14% of the flower clusters producing a secondary bud versus 34%. So that's a pretty big difference from year to year, and she did a lot of bud counts of them, thousands of actually 1,400 counts, I think. So I think it has something to do with what happened the year before too, whether or not the secondary buds had really good temperatures for good flower bud development in that previous year. So this is something that we need to look at. We all speculate, all the blackberry people speculate that there is differences in variety as well, but I think also climate has something to do with it too, in the previous year, the temperature in the previous year. Okay, one last plug here. We have a big deal coming here this summer. We have the Lebanon International Rubus and Variety Symposium. This is a scientific meeting that scientists from all over the world get together every 4 years, share data, share ideas, Everybody, that's anybody that does research on rubus, which is blackberry and raspberry, or ribes, which is, anybody know what those are? Currants and gooseberries, which we can't grow here, they're illegal, so we won't talk about that too much as far as growing them, or if you don't see any of that. Although I guess there's some wild stuff up in the mountains. They're coming here to North Carolina. We have a pre-symposium tour that will be centered in and around this area, so a lot of people are interested in coming here. They chose to come here 4 years ago because they had never seen blackberry production to any extent other than the Pacific Northwest. They hear all this fresh blackberry production, what's going on, they wanted to come here, they asked us, and I was very honored that they had. I wish I would have said yes right now because it's driving me a little bit wacko, lots of things to do, but it's a great honor to have these groups come to us. And it's a great fun event too, because I'm sure after this event, all the scientists will have exchanged lots of ideas and new information. We'll have all sorts of new developments after this symposium to share with you guys in the next upcoming years, new things going on. So that's happening here in pre-symposium tours in Charlotte, and then we'll move up to Asheville, where it's a little bit cooler because people from Finland and Sweden and Norway are coming here. We don't want to melt them for the whole week. So we're going to go up to the mountains and have our scientific meeting up there. So I just wanted to let you know, if you see some people around that don't look like they're from around here and they seem to be melting out there, just let them know that you welcome them here. And then the ebook too, if you have any ideas about that, please let me know. I'd really like some feedback on that. So any questions? Yeah. Am I? No. No. Not yet. I'm doing strawberries now. I'm doing strawberries. I'm going to apply for that one.